Hello everyone, welcome to a new market update. I'm gonna take a look at the some of the major charts that I've been following, as you know, and also I want to take a look at the retests, right? Because they always look scary, but in hindsight they look obvious for continuation, right? No matter if it's an uptrend or a downtrend, right? When we are in a downtrend, those are the pushes, the pull, like the dead cat bounce in a bear market that make people think it was just a temporary drawdown, so they buy the dip because we are back and this keeps going up. But in the end, the downtrend is already ongoing, so they end up buying falling knives, catching falling knives. So that's how people round trip all their gains, right? So we have to identify what kind of retests we are having, and if it's just all part of the current trend. So quick look at the daily for now. This is the general structure. Remember, it all keeps looking very similar. Previous range in 2024 with the divergence in summer that changed the trend. Slight divergence here, also with stock RSI. Right at the top, choppy price action, small bullish divergence here at the same time, and we finally break right after the first 60-day cycle, as we have seen. Similar here, bottom at the previous top, like in this range was respected the bottom. Bullish divergence, slightly bearish divergence here with RSI, a little bit flat. It was a slightly surpassed what I thought it was invalidated, but the stock RSI was saying that perhaps this was the end of the top of the 6-day daily cycle where we had the flush and the small bullish divergence with the stock RSI that didn't buy this kind of flush. That's why the next day we pretty much pushed back up and like nothing happened. And now we are stuck in this range. This like from 100 to the top, like a 10% range, right? But a good thing, in my opinion, is that what I feel was the end of this daily cycle that ended in the flash. This we could say this was the downtrend part of the daily cycle. This is the uptrend, and now what I see is this RSI looks healthy, right? So this could be the hindsight confirmation that this is the new daily cycle, right? We have a high in RSI, higher low. Even though we are rolling down, price is holding key levels, making a higher low. That's what we need to do now, right? We have the perfect bounce here overnight with all the war stuff. 102.5, as you know, was a very important level back here. That's why I said this was the biggest support and no 100k, even though we've tapped these wicks. So I still maintain that the play is going to be a complete rollover on stock RSI reset into FOMC on Tuesday, Wednesday. I think so far so good. Yeah, we can see that if I move it to Tuesday, Wednesday, this would be like the time for a reset, perhaps a little bit chop, another weeks, something like that, but within this range. I think it's all going well. If we take a look at the weekly, I'm going to remove all this for a second, we see hesitation around all-time high, right? So we have the rejection. We tried again, we get rejected, but price is absorbed. Next week we try again, it gets rejected, but it's absorbed again. So yeah, it's not something we haven't seen before. In fact, when we were getting close to the all-time high, we got rejected, absorbed, we tried again, and this week could have looked very bad back then, but it was a perfect rejection at the top, the previous top, but then the trend was already up. It had already shifted from this downtrend, and it was above the EMA, so all pointing to the uptrend to continue to the upside. Pretty much the same now. Again, don't really pay attention to stock RSI. It can chop around a lot. We've seen that here. It looked like it was going to roll over while RSI was just retesting, right? I'm not saying we have to retest the EMA exactly. We did once, not twice. Doesn't really matter, right? The thing is, we are still in an uptrend, right? And this kind of price action around all-time high is not extraordinary. In fact, that's why I like a high time frame, not only because it shows a clearer path and structure, is because the moves that happen in high time frame are way more impactful than daily or the 4-hour, of course. So if you want to try to play and anticipate all this in the daily, you are going to get exhausted for 8 months when you just have to wait and see if there is any big level retest, right? So for now, what I see is BTC holding and closing above the highest weekly close we've ever had, right? And that's why we're pretty much, let's say, stuck here. But look at all this absorption, all this liquidity grab on both sides, right? And this is money changing hands. And if I didn't see any kind of absorption on weeks closing way below, like for example below this, we would be at risk of filling this whole weekly candle. But for now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks holding this. Bears will say that it's holding but losing strength. That's their argument. We'll see, but I don't see that as long as we are above the DMA, right? In fact, the reason why I play high time frame, is we could just be in our way, as I saw many times, as I have explained, a retest of the 50 after the 50 EMA weekly after big impulses, right? So when we are in a downtrend, these are the kind of pushes, the retests that I said, that made people believe we're back. But for now, it's just a bearish retest of the EMA, right? Bearish retest, bearish. So this is to chop people around, but at the same time, we were forming like a bottom and eventually retest the EMA, right? So pretty much the same here. Retest, not even a retest here, complete drop, double bottom, and up we go. Here we could see it's a fake out. People would say, okay, it's rejected, but I see high, low, and a reclaim of the 50. Again, the high time frame really clears the perspective and helps you really spot the big trend changes, like at the bear market bottom, as we saw, right? So this is for BTC in terms of a structure. And let's take a look at the 4-hour chart. This is the 1, 2, 3 pattern that I mentioned several times. And this is the example for Q4, right? Many people could, if you want to overanalyze, and you could say, this is the 4-hour, remember? We lost it here, we're back, we lost. I mean, this is very choppy because it's the 4-hour. So this is a trend, so you have to take a look at the trend. And the trend here is downtrend, low highs, low lows, until it starts shifting, right? By making a high, and then you need a higher low to confirm that there is a shift. And at the same time, it does that by reclaiming all the 3, right? I have included the 50 as well. And this slow reclaim, these several retests, is what makes people lose their mind. This is the all-time high rejection, but what we did was a complete retest of the EMA, of all these 2 or 3 EMAs, to confirm that yes, the uptrend is solid, to allow bulls to step in and defend the trend several times. And then it's when we completely rebound. Remember, the 50 is like the short-term momentum kind of average. So being above means that the impulsive leg is strong enough until we lose it, and then we start chopping around it. We pushed again. But when you see this long chop after a big impulse, and it's a chop to the downside, something that doesn't happen here, these retests are not that bullish in my opinion. This could be, that's when we open indicators like RSI and stuff. This could be indicating that the trend is weakening. And we saw that with the daily divergence back here, right? So if I open the daily again, this was the various divergence that we were spotting, right? So it's a combination of everything, and now we are in an uptrend until after finding this bottom. The reclaim, this was the moment I said it was a launchpad for 84k because of all this accumulation right above the moving averages. Retest, retest, retest in the daily cycle low, retest now, and for now holding and pretty much stuck, right? This is the weekend. We will probably test or even week below the lower bound, 104.5, something like that. It's the weekend, we know kind of low volume drops that happen at the weekend. And if we take a look at the daily moving average, okay, doesn't work now for some reason. We take a look at the daily. What we see for now is a double top of the 50. Here with a candle and here with just a wick, right? Remember that the short-term momentum for these impulse to be strong and valid. We saw something like that in Q4, even like a very big front running. And we saw that here as well in the October 23 run to January, when we thought it was all over because of ETFs were the top, blah blah blah, and then quick reclaim, and then we continue. And in this downturn we start showing weakness again. We had divergences here in March, both daily, very overheated, weekly, all kind of signs. And then the trend reversal again. It goes down, it starts shifting, it goes down, it starts shifting. So there's nothing wrong with it. If you overanalyze, you get here, you say, okay, but this is a lower low. This is a lower high. Okay, but what if this is a higher low? All this means nothing. This is just a range. This is just overanalyzing. It's just choppy. I could argue, if you say that this means it is compressing. I could draw this and say, okay, it's compressing in an uptrend. You know what's going to happen. It's going to chop and it breaks to the outside. So I could also overanalyze, right? So, but I don't want to do that. I'm just looking at the trend, and as long as the trend holds, we're good. If we try to take a look at the USDT chart, we see that for now this rising wedge was broken to the downside. Perfect bounce from 4.5 for now being rejected, but we are in a new daily push, daily leg. The same way BTC is in a daily downtrend, right? Stock RSI wise, because they are inversely correlated, as we already know. So as long as we don't make a high, so we don't make a lower low, sorry, for BTC, it's all good. You could say that the structure is shifting because we are holding key levels, but what I see is a bear flag, a rising wedge, and for now it's unable to really revert this. You could open the weekly. It's not working really well, TradingView today. We open the weekly, right? And I said we had this bear flag and the down and the push down, and then we could even argue that this is forming another bear flag. You could say that if you want, but for now, what I see is liquidity grabs in both sides, perfect bounce at the weekly, but bears would say, or people worry, that we are already rolling. But this is something that I've been watching for a long time, and I was trapped by that many times in a downtrend, and that is RSI. RSI right now is in no man's land, in my opinion, right? It's an intermediate level, which aligns with RSI being in an intermediate level within a downtrend. Well, what I mean by this is the same way we saw with BTC, this downtrend no man's land, people buying this week because we are back, but we are still nowhere in this RSI. We haven't found a bottom. This is no bottom anywhere. This is like the mid of a downtrend. I need to find a bottom. More experienced people that I wasn't back then, I would buy here and then hold this being underwater and praying to be again like at break even at least is because RSI is in no man's land, and this would be just a very retest, even if we might not even get it. And for now, this is a low high, right? So here, for example, we saw very oversold levels together with very important high time frame support. And this was when March, when BTC was really overheated. So yeah, that could be enough. Here, when we got here, you might think, okay, this still might not be. Here was early mid-December when we saw on the daily that it was a bullish divergence and a bearish divergence of a BTC. So that could be enough. But if you don't trust that on the high time frame, you could just wait for this like double bottom, higher high, higher low. Sorry, but RSI is also climbing and fighting to reclaim the MA, right? So that could be way more meaningful. For now, we haven't had any clear bearish divergence forming for a month like BTC did here in the daily. As we have seen, this extended this much from November to January. Mid-December was the first sign. We haven't had that, right? So it's not the same. We could be just having a bearish retest. And this is still a downtrend. And when you print a bearish divergence here in the weekly, that extends from August to March. It's not just, in my opinion, to just have such a small downtrend, right? Like April, May, June, that's it. Or not even June, like a month and a half, that's it. Like I don't know, let's see how this bearish divergence, right? 31 weeks just to end up in a 6 weeks correction or kind of move. I don't think that's the thing. The last time we had such bearish divergence, which by the way, this was regular, which means, as I said, trend reversal. This was hidden, which means continuation. We will see that in the GOLDBTC chart now. That helped also confirm the bottom in April. So when you see this for such a long time, more or less the same. Since then, we entered the bull market. Right? You can say, yes, but we chopped. Yes, we chopped. We tried lower high, lower low. Sorry, lower high, higher low, but lower high again, and then eventually gave up. It's not something when you have such a long divergence that ends up just. It's like saying it ends here, and this is the bottom, and it's over. Blah blah blah. And all this was in the new accumulation in 2023. Yes, accumulation in hindsight, of course. Right. The correction, some of this was a whole chop year, which is normal after the bear market. Like have some initial strength, but still very weak. So I don't think it will end up here. This is just, in my opinion, we'll remove all this after breaking the levels. Sorry, this is just a pause here, as we have seen, perhaps here, in this downtrend, and breaking this would be the end of the cycle, in my opinion. The final push, perhaps down here. We have already talked about this, and if you want this to be bullish, then you have to make a high. Then I would be worried, like surpassing 5%, something like that. Come back perhaps to 490, perhaps that for now is the resistance, and then I will say, okay, this is USDT being back, but for now it's a very retest. In fact, if I open the weekly, right, what I see for now is, I'm going to remove some of this data, is USDT here with a fake out, the bearish divergence we saw on the daily, and now it tried to hold the 50 and the 200, and then it's getting rejected by the 50, right? It did here again until eventually giving up. He entered the market, it was holding, eventually lost it, right? And you can see that in this correction here, it couldn't even hold it. It couldn't even hold it now. I'm printing a lower high, another divergence. So I think this is messing people around, but this is just an attempt to push back up and get rejected if we are still in a bull and we are below the MA. So as long as we are below the MA, I think this has no value. And you could say, well, but the corrections or the reversal has to start somewhere. That's true, but I would need some kind of support, right? You could argue, okay, but this is like a bull market support. Could be a bull market support like for BTC. No, we lost it here. It hasn't been respected, right? So perhaps an RSI support would be this, which was the last one. And then I could start thinking we see a bullish divergence forming, like I did here, right? With this push, and this also like double bottom together with a double top for BTC. We saw that double top. So we could see that, and then I could argue that, okay, perhaps the trend is reversing. So that's why all these retests are always scary, right? But they are necessary to confirm the downtrend or the uptrend, as we saw with BTC and the weekly. So for now, I don't think there's anything to worry about. And we could just wait and see how it all develops. We can see the 4-hour, yes, USDT is above. That's why this trend is choppy. It's always been choppy. But it could eventually give up as happened before. We saw that here in Q4. It's choppy. It tries to go up, lower, higher, low. It tries again. Yes, it's above. Yes, when you're going through this, you might think that it is reverting, but then it lost it and it becomes resistance, right? In fact, the daily shows a similar scenario. Bounce from the first one, rejected. Back below, we try again, rejected. We lost it, resistance, we try again, we can't hold it. We bounce for the first one, we can't hold it. Now we lose this one. We get rejected again, even lower. We're trying to hold this, and we should be rejected here at 486, more or less. Like not breaking 490. And then we probably lose this and eventually this and roll over. So every retest is scary. And I also want to take a look at the Ethereum BTC chart, because we can see how toppy it looks temporarily, locally, here for compared to Ethereum compared to BTC, but it's holding at the same time. So that, in my idea, reinforces the idea of the bottom being in. As I said, this would be the high temporary level to find a bottom, very oversold levels. Does it mean it has to chop that much as it did in 2020, 2021? No, because it was like 400 and something days. You don't have to go through that before the old season, right? Trading view is not working really well today. So we open the daily range, the date range, and we see from the bottom to early January here, when the old season starts, like a year and something, year and a half. That's too much. We're not going through that. That would mean getting deep into 2026 now. I don't think that's the case, because you can see that this structure is not the same. This is a controlled demolition, in my opinion, from Ethereum, right? To make people not fully capitulate, but right. But it is remarkable, in my opinion, and I keep my idea that BTC dominance has stopped. Not because I wanted to, not just because of BTC dominance chart, but because of Ethereum BTC. If we compare it, and I've already done this before with BTC dominance, take a look at the progression of Ethereum BTC, and you will see what BTC dominance looks like. It's a mirror. It's a complete mirror. You can see it here. It's a complete mirror. So the outperformance of Ethereum BTC depends on BTC dominance or is linked to BTC dominance. You might think, okay, but that's not something new, something relevant. That tells you nothing. Look at the place where Ethereum BTC bottom compared to BTC dominance. All BTC dominance did from this bottom, when Ethereum BTC retested it, high, low, lower, high, it couldn't break this. Not even this further retest here. By the time it tried to get back to this level, Ethereum had already been outperforming BTC. Something we can see here for total 3, which was already slowly climbing above the 50-day moving average when people were really losing their minds because it was doing nothing, right? Because what people was only dreaming. Oh, sorry, but it is kind of resetting every chart today. Something about the plan not being enough for this. Something weird. So people were losing their minds here because they only looked back sentimentally at 2017 and we will never have the same. But what Total was doing was climbing, holding the MA the same way Ethereum BTC did here, outperforming Ethereum, outperforming BTC. So this was the bottom, and the top for BTC dominance. In hindsight, it was the top. And what I see now, and I've shown from several perspectives, is if this is the bottom, you can see that for now BTC dominance still hasn't been able to break 65.38, which again I said was reached when BTC was around 97k. BTC hasn't even climbed to 110. We have had several drops, and not even with those drops where it's normally when BTC dominance pushes because altcoins retrace even more, it hasn't been able to make a new high, right? And I think that's relevant, and that's, to me, the signal BTC dominance has stopped. And even though here in 2021 BTC really pushed, right? You can see that even if was outperformed, BTC run hard, right? It doesn't mean Ethereum wasn't already getting ready, the same as Total 3. And remember that now, look at how far Total 3 was back then. I've shown this many times, right? But since I have new followers, I want to keep updated more or less. 200% from the top, like 500% from the, give me a second, from these the top, right? For BTC dominance, August 2019, August, you would have to go back here, right? So yeah, pretty much the same. And now we are holding the moving averages again, chopping, but holding. We're just 38%. That's why I think altcoins are doing way better, but you have to keep in mind what we are seeing. So finally, I'm gonna take a look at the GOLDBTC chart, because it's something that I've been using before to spot the trend changes, right? Bear markets, gold starts printing a bearish divergence compared to BTC, because BTC is also printing a bullish divergence against USDT and against USD. So that signals the end of the bear market for BTC. First correction here for gold was very oversold compared to BTC here in March 24, the top for BTC. We come back here, we print a weekly bearish divergence at the same time, with this last push here being like the confirmation of weakness, the bottom here in September. But here from September we still come back a little bit. And where do we come back to? Is it a random level? Let's open the divergences, and what I see is a retest, several retests of the 50 weekly, right? The EMA. they're losing it, right? We try to reset it several times and it fails. And then it's when we get to this oversold level, we print the bullish divergence, gold against BTC, and this is the top in Q4. And now this is the correction. We print another divergence. That's when I said that sentiment is dead, but I see another hidden bullish divergence for BTC, right? And a hidden bearish divergence for gold. And that was the last bottom from gold and the gold top. And what happened? That was the top for gold and the time to outperform for BTC. What it's happening now is, again, no man's land for RSI. So I don't trust this is a reversal. I need to find some kind of bottom area, like bottom range, something like this, like we saw here, right? This is the first area that I will consider because I have some reference for that. This is the first area of 30 something. So this is no man's land. This could just be an attempt. Not even it doesn't have to get there, but it could be an attempt, a retest of the 50, which means perhaps gold might be pushing again and BTC just chopping around. It doesn't matter. Could take longer. And then the performance continue until finding the bottom, and then the weekly cycle, the correction into the final move of the cycle, right? Again, gold, if gold is an indicator of risk off, it's normal that in this situation it's pulling back, right? Against it's being dominant against BTC because of all the war and stuff. But what I see technically, is just a potential bearish retest to continue. That's why all these retests always look scary and looks like the trend is over. Bobby said it on Twitter very, very well, that in the bear market, all these retests, in this case, in the bear market, when it's a downtrend, it's a bearish retest. That's what makes people think that we're back. But it's too early. We are seeing a downtrend. And in a bull market, those retests, because there's PTSD, that makes people think that it's over. It's a fake impulse. But it's just a confirmation of the trend, right? So as long as high time frame is healthy, I don't really care about all these small daily swings. We can see what war has done for BTC, the same kind of drop as the daily cycle flash, and people weren't worried back then. Why? Because they weren't really paying attention to technicals. It was sentiment. Oh, just a daily cycle flash. Okay. But now we see war and it's all over. Pack it up, right? So if your sentiment has changed in those situations when the technicals are pretty much the same, it means you are not following technicals, you are following sentiment. A war looks way worse than a daily cycle flash, but technically and data-wise, both have produced the same kind of drop. That's it. And we haven't, in all the war stuff, USDT hasn't been able to reach the same kind of drop that the daily cycle flash created. Not even with war. So think about that. Until we see data that invalidates trying to anticipate, it means that either you are sentimental in that situation, perhaps you are tired and bored and you say this is over, it's pulling, it's retracing, it's reversing, I'm gonna exit the markets. You don't wait for validation, you don't wait for confirmation, you are trying to anticipate. If you do that, you could save more money by exiting earlier, yes, but what if it's just a retest? What do? You buy higher and you confirm you have lost money by selling here and buying again higher, right? So follow a plan. Follow a plan. I said yesterday that the trickiest part of all this is the emotional part, because you can have a plan. It's like studying for months for an exam and you think, okay, I know everything. And then you can't control yourself the days before, the night before you can sleep because you have no emotional control. You get to the exam and even though you know everything, you can't apply that because emotionally you are broken, right? If everything was about theory and knowledge, everyone would be a fucking genius. You just study a degree or something. Everyone studies the same thing, then why are professionals so different? Right? If we all have access to the same information, if we all have the same kind of data and charts, why don't we all get to the same conclusion? Why don't we all make the same kind of money? because the emotional part is the trickiest, even though they tell you it's not. It's all about charts. Yes, you have to apply them. I've seen many good traders over the years that I used to follow losing it because they were 24/7 glued to a fucking screen. And what all they got was overanalyzing from the 4-hour chart to the 2-hour chart to the 1-hour chart because I want something. If I don't find anything or what I want to see here, I change to a 4-hour. Does the 4-hour say anything? Okay, the trade view is trolling me today. So if I open the 4-hour, do I really see something relevant? Okay, this is rolling down, but it's also holding. What's going to happen? This is going to push back again, or is it going to roll? I don't know what to do. Should I open alone? You have no clarity, but you are forcing yourself to find something because you need something. You are addicted to that, or you have completely lost it. So I've seen many traders make terrible calls just because they're over-analyzing and over-complicating things. So that's why I use the same charts. Once there was someone who asked me how I could maintain all this clarity with how crazy the market is. Perhaps it's not that crazy because I stick to the same kind of charts. I cannot track progress if I completely change the time frame, the chart, I add new indicators. I can't keep track of them because I haven't used them before. So I don't know if they are relevant. I can't really understand them, right? When I started spotting the trend changes here in type of channels for assets like BTC, not only divergences, it's because I've been staring and analyzing the same chart over and over again. So you start discovering new things. I start sifting, adding new indicators, adding new moving average I've never used. Then I have conflicting information. So I don't know what I could get. Perhaps I add a new moving average and all of a sudden what's bullish turns bearish or vice versa. So stick to a plan. These boring times are the times where you have to develop everything so you can get the rewards when everything pushes and everyone gets crazy and you know, okay, I see weakness, I'm out, while everyone is still celebrating and thinking we are just starting the new bull run and blah blah blah, the new hedge against inflation for BTC, blah blah blah, all those narratives that fit their people's bias. But again, everything looks good. Retests are always scary because they happen at the make it or break it kind of line, but so far so good. Here, 50 bounce, and then you want this, but you don't want to go through this. This is emotional then. This is not technical, right? If I was an algorithm and I apply, okay, if we have a retest and continuation, don't sell. If we lose it for blah blah blah, make lower, then sell. Then the algorithm wouldn't just be emotional and say, okay, but what if this? No, it's just all data. And you have to apply that, in my opinion, if you want to make it. Control the emotions and follow a plan. It's going to be tricky, but it's the time to work on that. So, long video, as always. I think I'm not going to try to make it short. If it's short one day, then good. But I hope all this kind of mix of data analysis and psychological approach to markets is a mix that I want to show you and share with you because it's mandatory. You can't separate psychology from technical and from data. Nothing works like that. We are a mix of both, and we can't just pretend that we can separate them when investing, right? So I'll see you next week, perhaps after FOMC, when we have some more clarity in price direction. And until then, take care. Have a nice weekend.